guys, it's Izzy here, and today we're going to be looking at books that I think are going to be 5-star predictions. So that means these are books that I think I will rate 5 out of 5 stars, and I own all these books on my physical TBR. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one of these books to my TBRs every month. So that will be starting in February. I don't think I have like 12. I don't think I have over 10. So this should be an easy accomplishment. This does kind of make me nervous though, because that means I have expectations going into these books that they're going to be great books. And if they're not great, I'm going to be really let down. So that is kind of sad. But be sure to check out my vlogs throughout the year, because all these books will be featured in a vlog and will be featured in other videos throughout the year. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell to be notified when my videos go live. Let's get into this video. Let's start out with contemporary. So the first book I have to talk about today is Anxious People. After a failed bank robbery, the robber runs to hide in a house that is currently having an auction. He takes all the people hostage. There are people from all walks of life inside the house: a wealthy banker, a young couple, an elderly couple, and an 87-year-old woman who has seen enough of life that she is not scared of a robber waving a gun in her face. There is also a real estate agent, and then a man of mystery who has locked himself inside the home's one bathroom. Each all have a different backstory that is deeper than their stereotype might make them appear. So as the authorities and media are circling this story and the house that the people are in, this unlikely group of allies has to come together to take down the robber and find themselves along the way in this life or death situation. So why do I think this book is going to be a 5-star? So I read Beartown by Frederick Backman, who is the same author, back in February of 2020, and then I'll be reading this book in February of 2021, so that's kind of fun. But I read Beartown back then, and when I was reading it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so boring, when will it end? And I was like, I even had to switch to the audiobook because I could not get through it. But then after it, I was like, oh my gosh, that book was a masterpiece. And here I am 2 years later still thinking about it. So I definitely do want to reread Beartown. I think I would give it a higher rating than a 3-star. But the reason why y'all are probably like, you gave that book a 3-star. Why do you think this other book's going to be a 5-star? Because Beartown was so character driven. At the time, I was not a huge fan of character driven things, but now I'm like, give me character driven, that's what I love. So I definitely do think that Frederick Backman's writing is really analyzing characters, and would be such a fun thing to have a discussion about one of his books and about how the characters develop throughout the novel. And then he always hits important topics of maybe in this one it's going to be like whose life is more valuable and whatnot, which is a topic that I've been seeing in a lot of books recently, is should you rescue the little baby or the elderly woman, whatever. So I do think he brings up a lot of interesting topics in his books, and then his characters are always very well developed. This one does have quite a few characters, so I don't know how it will be done, but I have faith that this will be a 5-star. The next book I have is The Overstory. So the story connects pre-Civil War New York to times in between and then to the modern day. It shows the world of nature growing or ceasing to exist as our American society grows. It also shows people connecting with nature, but also getting thrown into society, getting away from nature. So I think this will be a 5-star for me, because this is going to be a common theme in the video, is that I like books with multiple timelines, and this book does just that, as you can see by the first sentence in the synopsis. But there is not a whole lot of information on this book online of what this book is about. So I'm going to be going in not knowing much. I feel like you should go in not knowing much, since there's not a lot of information about it. But I do think it's going to be a 5-star because I love multi-timelines, and then we're focusing on issues like nature and maybe climate change and whatnot, just the ecosystem as a whole and how we should be saving it, even though our society is really industrialized in the United States and in the world for that matter. So I think it's going to raise a lot of important issues to our minds. Let's go to fantasy now. So we have The Immortalist. So the story starts in the late 60s in New York City when a mystical lady arrives in the city telling people the date that they will die. 4 teenagers go to see her to see if what she has to say is true or just a scam. She tells them what each will be doing for the next 50 years of their lives. This group of teenagers will go in all different directions all around the globe, living very different lives. So is what she's saying true or not? And the story makes the question of, is there a choice or are we born with a set destiny? Which is something I find very fascinating because I'm not sure what I believe, if there is free will or if there is a destiny. I think it's probably kind of a mix of both, but that is not why we're here today. So again, this book is going to most likely have multi-timelines as we start in the 60s, and it says the next 50 years of their lives. So I'm assuming we are going from the 60s to the 2010s by that, or hold on, yeah, that's 50 math. And then I really like the late 60s New York City setting because I love the 60s. I love the New York setting, even though New York's not my favorite city, but you know, I love books that are set there. This really reminds me of an Alice Hoffman book. I don't remember which one. The Rules of Magic, I think is the name, that I read last year. It's set kind of in this time period in New York, and there's a lot of magical realism, and I think this book is going to be more magical realism than high fantasy just by the synopsis there. So I am excited to get into that one. Okay, historical fiction now. Y'all know this is my favorite genre, so I have several books here. So we'll start with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Rick Dalton is a washed-up actor who does not yet want to call it quits to his career, but Hollywood is evolving for more than the weekly western. And Cliff Booth is a stunt double who is also a friend of Rick's, and he's most well known for he might have got away with murder in the past. Then Rick's next door neighbor is Sharon Tate, showing the young and up and coming of how Hollywood is changing. And then somewhere across the county on an abandoned movie ranch is Charles Manson. So I'm sure y'all have probably seen this movie. I think it's going to be a classic. It's one you can always go back to and whatnot. It is a very character-driven movie and slice of life, and I think that will translate well on page. And then in the book, we are getting some scenes that were cut out from the movie and just more background on the characters and even side characters. So I think this one will be really good for me because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was my favorite movie that I watched, didn't come out, but I watched in 2021. So I really do want to get to the book. So then we have Cloud Cuckoo Land. So Anna is an orphan living in Constantinople. She lives with the women who make robes for the priest. So Anna soon discovers her love for reading through a story of someone who longs to be a bird and fly away to a utopian society. 500 years later, I think the name is Zeno. Yep, Zeno makes plays based on the same story about the birds and whatnot. And then in a near future spaceship, Constance is preserving the same story. So multi-timelines there. And I'm really interested just how all these characters are going to be connected. We obviously do have the connection of they are all fascinated by this one story. And I'm just wondering if there's going to be a deeper connection. I know this is a lot of people's one of their favorite books of this year, including President Obama. So, or last year, my bad. But, so I think this one is going to be really cool, and if you haven't seen the cover, it is a really great cover, and I cannot wait to get to it. So then we have Malibu Rising, and it's August in Malibu, and that means Nina Riva's annual party is about to take place. Everyone dreams of going to this party to be around the famous Riva siblings, but the siblings all have reasons of wanting or not wanting this party to happen. By the end of the night, the Malibu mansion has burnt down just to ashes. The siblings are left wondering if they can open up to their other siblings or if they need to keep their secrets inside. So I am super, super excited for this, and I've been wanting to pick it up, but I'm like, it is just not the time. I don't read historical fiction in January or December because I was wanting to read it last month as well. But Taylor Jenkins Reid is one of my favorite authors. If you didn't know, this book is a kind of companion novel to The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. You can read them separately, but there are characters from The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo in Malibu Rising as well. So I think that will be a lot of fun to see those characters again. And I just love that her books are set in the same universe. I imagine Daisy Jones and the Six taking place in the same universe, but there is no confirmation of that. So Taylor Jenkins Reid, please let me know because I am super curious. Let's go to nonfiction now. So the first nonfiction book that I have on the list is The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. So Henrietta Lacks was a tobacco farmer in the rural American South. She worked the same land that her ancestors did as slaves, but there is something different. Her cells were taken from her without her consent. Even though Henrietta has passed, her cells are still alive today and have been used to make the polio vaccine and then see the effects of what the atomic bomb had on people and then other things throughout science. This story uncovers the racism that science held in the past and just the morals of science overall. So I think this is really fascinating of how cells can live that long. I personally didn't really know that. And just how they were taken from her without her knowledge. I'm curious of how that happened. And she never knew, she died without knowing. And I think only her descendants were the ones who found out. It's so gross how corrupt science was, and it may still be. I only know about this story and then another story of how scientists would do tests on black women and do terrible things, torture. Really, if we want to put the real word out there, torture. They tortured women without their consent and just did really, really cruel things. And I'm glad that this book is bringing justice for these women. And a lot of people know about these cells that were used and all, but they don't know the backstory behind it. And so I'm glad that Henrietta Lacks's name is getting out there, so people are knowing her story, and hopefully people will know this story and will not repeat what happened to her to other people in the future. So the next one we have is also a science nonfiction one, and that is She Has Her Mother's Laugh. So this book is more than just about DNA and Charles Darwin. The story goes with the author's own theories that genetics and that how heredity is not just about genetics. So Zimmer, the author, uses not just scientific sources but historic as well to back his claim. He researches the new forms of medicine and what effect they have on us and what we as people will pass on to future generations. So genetics are something I am very fascinated in, and I know this book is top notch for that. And yeah, so I just want to know more about genetics, and I know this one is very well known, and heredity is something that really fascinates me, how someone who lived 500 years ago could affect me, my personality, my health, what color my hair is, and whatnot. So I think it is very fascinating how our ancestors impacted us and then how we may impact our descendants. So let's go to romance now. We have Herta in a Love Song. So Layla was the front woman of a well-known band, but the band has broken up and she's struggling to break free from that image, and then she just ended a 10-year marriage, so she's also breaking free from that. She's 35 but feels like her life is just beginning. The sudden freedom makes her feel uneasiness and loneliness. And then there's Josh, who is a single father who is just getting out of a 20-year marriage with his high school sweetheart. The way these two worlds collide is that Layla teaches music at the school that Josh's child attends. The two end up talking most days of how confusing the world of dating is now with social media and apps. The two decide that maybe dating each other is the right idea. So when I first bought this book, I had no idea that it was a romance novel. I just thought it was going to be a contemporary literary fiction novel. But it is indeed a romance by Goodreads. And this book was blurbed by Taylor Jenkins Reid, who is one of my favorite authors, so I trust her that this book will be a 5-star. And then we just have music, and I love books about music because music is one of my passions, so I love to read about characters who are also passionate about it. So I think this book will be a lot of fun, and I am very nervous for this romance because I don't think being each other's rebounds is necessarily a good idea, but it is a romance, so I feel like the characters will be together at the end. I feel like romances are always happily ever after, but you never know. You never know. So the last book is a science fiction book, and that is After the Flood. So in the near future, the sea levels have risen and all of America's coastal cities are gone, and the Midwest or heartland is an archipelago of islands. So Myra and her daughter Pearl only come to land to trade the fish that they catch from their fishing boat. They live on their fishing boat. But Myra's eldest daughter was taken away by her father, and Myra has since learned that there was a sighting of the eldest daughter at a safe haven kind of thing near the Arctic Circle. So Myra and her younger daughter get on a ship and head there to the safe haven community, and is it all what they make it out to be? So I am loving science fiction at the moment, and I'm loving near future ones because they just feel like they could happen. I've recently read the first 2 books in the Road to Nowhere series by Meg Ellison, and that is a pandemic one. So this one I think is really a climate change story. And obviously climate change is happening, and our America's coastal cities could be gone in the next 25 years for all we know. So I think that this will be really interesting to see what could happen to our society. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, comment, rate, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!